I'm going to talk to you today about a long-standing mine operation and not an up-and-coming project, but it's a pretty exciting place. I've been at Musselwhite now for about 15 months, and what excited me about coming over to this project was not only the long-standing history of it, but the potential for growth, and you could just sense the potential for this operation to make a transition. So I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about the history, and then briefly about the history, and then move right into kind of where we're at from an operational standpoint, and then we'll talk about the next steps, and I'll have to figure out how to work this. Awesome. So Newmont is the #1 gold producer in the world. We have over 12 operations globally. And Musselwhite is part of the North American operation, or North American region. So that region consists of Cripple Creek and Victor, which is in Denver, or which is outside of Denver, Colorado, and then the Eleanor mine in Quebec, Musselwhite, and Porcupine. Here's some facts on Musselwhite. Over 25 years in production, 100% owned by Newmont, and just around 1,000 employees and contractors. So a pretty good sized underground operation. Our production last year was around 173,000 ounces and just under 2 million in reserves at year end. Some highlights of the operation. This year we were pretty excited. We were connected to the Watay power line. That power line allowed us to, in essence, shut down our diesel generation that we were using in assistance. We had a power line already to the mine, but this provided us with the additional power to continue to operate. It's an exciting project. It was a project that was envisioned in the early 2010s, and that project not only brought power to Musselwhite, but brought power to the northern communities up there and got many of those communities off diesel power generation as well. Been a long time producer, as I mentioned, 173,000 ounces, 25 years of production. Got to participate in that celebration last year, and I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what we see for the future here. Industry-leading community engagement. Musselwhite was one of the first operations to have a community agreement. That was the Musselwhite Agreement with the First Nation communities up in Northern Ontario. And that's brought business development. It's brought site access to those. It still establishes site access to the community members up there, and strong environmental monitoring by the community. So it's really a good, strong relationship between Newmont and Musselwhite and those local northern communities. You see there, I mentioned the around 1,000 employees. 25% of those employees are First Nation, and we have strong programs to continue to grow that First Nation population at Musselwhite. We have a traditional leave program, we have workplace training, and we have set up good, strong listening points both within the communities and at the operation to understand how we can better engage First Nation community members into the Musselwhite population. And then I'm going to talk today about our full potential programs. That's Newmont's version of business improvement, and that has contributed almost $25 million a year in benefits to the operation. And finally, I talked about the Musselwhite Agreement. What has that contributed? Over $100 million over the life of that agreement to those communities. And last year we asked, our contributions in the community were around 300,000. So 100 million over 25 years and then 300,000 over the last year. So 25 years into operation, where's Musselwhite going? What do we have in the stores? What's our potential? This long section looking southeast to northwest shows the mine workings in gray. You can see the mined out areas. In gold and in blue are reserve and resource. Those big blue arrows show the potential, and you can see that we're open at depth throughout that ore body. So many people have worked at Musselwhite, probably are familiar with the ore body. A lot of exploration potential still there at the mine, and we're very, very excited about that future. All right, talk a little bit about the history. So in order to understand kind of the next few slides and where we're going as Newmont and how we're going to try to unlock that potential and how we're going to try to take that exploration potential and turn it into mine production. So on the top is a timeline for Newmont. It shows, or for Musselwhite, shows the 1992 Musselwhite agreement, moves into commercial production, and then shows the Goldcorp acquisition of Placer Dome in 2006. And finally, the 2019 acquisition of Newmont of Goldcorp. I expanded out the 2019 box because I think there's a lot of important things that have happened since 2019 at Musselwhite and have led to a lot of challenges at the operation. Since 2019, we had a conveyor fire, and it shut down the operation for basically a year, shut down production. And then right after we got fired back up and we were getting back into the swing of things, global pandemic hits. And so we see those impacts of that global pandemic all throughout 2020 and 2021, as many of you experienced as well. And then following that, you can see, so we had a lot of shutdown periods, and then following that, we move into kind of this area of vent upgrades, and I mentioned this vent upgrades over here to the far right. But basically, during that whole time period, we were shut down and in various states of operation, and we were working on how do we get better, how do we get more efficient, and how do we position ourselves for long-term success. That vent upgrades, that initiation of that project is a key project that's going to unlock a lot of the potential for Musselwhite. So some of those improvements, we implemented jumbo bolting at Musselwhite. That's been a big transition for us. We're in the process right now, but we're getting rid of the McLean bolters, and we're using one tool, the jumbo, to allow us to drill and bolt and advance the mine. That's unlocking a lot of potential for us, and it eliminates pieces of equipment going in and out of the headings. We moved our blasting. We moved blasting to shift change. So we were doing a lot of blasting on shift. Not very efficient, so we moved that to shift change. We're much more efficient and safer in our blasting processes. We're not having to move people in and out of the operation. And then we implemented early mine entry. We were losing probably 2.5 hours at every shift change. And so we implemented longer shifts, but we implemented early mine entry so we could get the mine ventilated out faster and get people to the working phase quicker. On the production side, we implemented tele-remote mucking. So no longer are we using line-of-sight mucking to extract ore out of the stopes. We're using tele-remote, and we're looking to advance that to potentially some automation. We commissioned the winds. The winds began back before Newmont's acquisition. We got that winds commissioned in 2020, excuse me, and that winds has been helping us extract ore from deep in the mine. And then we increased our truck payloads. This is a pretty simple project. We just took and we extended the boards on our 8045 trucks and allowed us to put more tons in the bed of the truck. And that allowed us to move our tonnage from 39 tons up to 43 tons. Drilling, we implemented owner-operated production drilling. So we moved from using a contractor to doing it in-house, and we're doing that with battery electric drills. And from an infrastructure standpoint, I really want to touch on the fact that we did a camp upgrade. We're in the process of doing a camp upgrade right now. So not only can it be about how do we mine more efficient, how do we save money, but it's really about culture and lifestyle at the camp. So we're doing a major camp upgrade, and we're looking at all of the infrastructure at Musselwhite. Much of that infrastructure is 25 years old and needs those upgrades and needs to get itself positioned for future mine life. And then on the planning side, moving from longitudinal stopes to transverse stopes, found that transverse stopes allowed us to get a lot more bulk tons out, much more efficient, and improve the economics. We went to a double lift stope. So not only are we doing transverse stoping, but we're stoping too high in double lift stopes. And then finally, the ventilation improvements, talking about ventilation improvements. One of the big challenges Musselwhite has is that it's mining underneath a lake, so you can't just drive a vent raise up to surface. So we did a lot of work beginning in 2019 when Newmont bought Goldcore to change up the ventilation at the operation and get it so that we could ventilate the deeper parts of the mine and continue to extend that mine life deeper, or the ore body deeper. Along with production improvements, cultural change was also necessary. So we implemented our fatality risk management program. That program puts leaders out in the field, talking to employees, finding out what's going on with employees, and really asking, do we have the critical controls in place to manage the risks that the employees are exposed to? We did a lot of work around eliminating signs of exclusion. So we did a lot of work around inclusion and diversity. Some of those big things were really just simple things like going around to our building signage and adding OG Cree signs to the buildings to recognize that, look, we're working on traditional lands. And then we recognized that our women's dry was a small facility and wasn't capable of supporting the workforce of the future. So expansions to the women's dry was essential, and that project is up and ongoing. We're investing in the aging infrastructure. I mentioned the housing. We're improving the rec center, our camp, to make sure that we've got good work environment for employees and it's an attractive place to come and work. And then focusing on skills development. Things like STOPE schools, our summer student programs, our apprenticeship programs, and providing development plans for all of our employees. Those are the kind of things that keep people wanting to come to Musselwhite and keep the workforce engaged and staying there. And I guess finally, the implementing the diverse hiring panels. So when you think about your panels and you think about trying to get an inclusive workforce, if you have everybody that looks the same on your hiring panel, it's pretty hard to get somebody convinced to want to come work for you. So we implemented that diversity on those panels, made sure that our panels had local representation, but also male and female mix to make sure that people could understand what the new look of mining is. So whenever you do change, and you do it in a short period of time, there are problems. And some things you do well, and some things you don't do so well. So the things that we did well, look, we did a good job of communicating that burning platform. We told people this is important, this is what we want to do, and really let them know like this is essential and this is why we want to do it. We moved quickly. We're very, very good at moving quickly to capture some of those benefits. And we had strong leadership buy-in. Some of the areas that we didn't do as well and our opportunities for growth, really celebrating those successes. We weren't always good at celebrating that success and communicating that success, telling people, you know, why we did it and what was great about it. Providing on-the-job training. We have opportunities to do a better job of providing that on-the-job training. We did a lot of work around classrooms. We did some work about bringing trainers in, but we have a lot of work to do around getting better at on-the-job training. And then garnering buy-in on the changes. Sometimes it's not enough to communicate the burning platform. Sometimes you have to make sure that you sit down with the folks that are going through the change and get their input into that change so that you can make sure that they have that buy-in. So what is our culture today? I really do think that we have a strong sense of inclusion at Musselwhite, and I think that's driving that potential. And we're garnering the voices of the many. We're having many more listening points. We're talking about how do we get better, how do we get people engaged, and how do we improve. We have a strong focus on delivering on our commitments. It's one thing to say that you're going to do something. It's one thing to set a target, to set a stretch target. It's another thing to execute on it, and that's what we're focusing on is the execution. Set up targets that you can achieve with some stress, and then execute on them. With some stretch, excuse me. And then improving our communication and our messaging, making sure that we're engaging with the workforce, that we're understanding what people's concerns are when we implement a change, and incorporating that into the change. And then finally, our planning, just getting better at our planning, making sure that we have executable plans and that the people are bought into them. So what has that gotten us? It's gotten us a lot of good results. If you look at where we were in 2018, you can see that conveyor fire, you can see the impact. So the lighter blue is ore mined in tons, the darker blue is gold in ounces, and the line is development. And you can see the improvements in development we've seen over the last 3 years, and you can see the improvement in ore tons and the improvement in gold ounces mined, and we expect that trend to continue. So what does that all do for us? Well, that helps us unlock that exploration potential, because as we go deeper and deeper, we recognize that the grade of the ore body may not change, and so we have to become more efficient at extracting that ore body. We have to figure out these ventilation problems, which means we need everybody's buy-in to try to make sure that we have strong ventilation down at the face. And we're going to be implementing more changes as we continue to go. We're going to continue to look at battery electric vehicles. We're going to continue to look at the local hiring. And finally, we got to figure out material extraction and how do we get the ore out of the bottom of the mine when you've got those kind of depths that we're looking at. Thank you.